Jesse Allen here. We are talking with Director of Central U.S. Crops for Atticus, Sam Knott. Sam, how are you today?
Great, Jesse. Thank you for having me on your show.
Hey, Sam, I appreciate you joining us. And I think just to start, let's talk about, where this crop is at right now as we're getting, into the middle of summer. Talk about what you're seeing with the crop. And I know you got a few different points you wanted to make sure we hit on as we're kind of talking about the crop and where it stands right now.
Yeah, so overall, we have a great crop established across the Midwest. Crops got planted in a timely frame, and we've gotten very good moisture recently across much of the major corn, soybean producing states. So there's three things I like to focus on this time of year from a scouting perspective. Really gives us a perspective on where we're at for this crop and what can we do better for next year. The first one is simply reviewing our weed control programs. Put on your boots, roll up your sleeves, get out there, walk fields, talk to your agronomy advisors, your input suppliers, and it really starts with the traits that were used in the bag of seed this year. It really sets the stage for the herbicides that are used from a burn down, residual, and then in crop application. And this year we're experiencing major issues on a supply situation. So the sooner you can evaluate what's working, not working this year, that way you can set a better plan for next year and how to improve on the weed control. First thing is that really, after you're done evaluating that weed control, get out there and look at late season nutrient applications by pulling some tissue samples. And you've done everything you need for 9 months to fertilize that crop. I recommend going out there and pulling a tissue sample. This time of year, your corn and your soybean plants, they're consuming the majority of the macro micronutrients that they need for the entire year to maximize their potential yields. So I suggest pulling a tissue sample. It's a report card that tells you what's actively happening with your crop. If you've done everything humanly possible to set your crop up for success, nothing better than looking at a report card with great reports back saying you've done everything you could. But it's not too late to apply a macro or micronutrient if you need to do something else for the rest of the crop year. Third thing is, this time of year is really crucial when it comes to managing diseases and insect control. It's really easy to think we're done for the season and ignore what's happening in that growing crop. But get out there and evaluate the crop yield potential you have. The environment we have right now with high humidity, temperatures, lots of moisture, it's the perfect breeding grounds for disease pressure that are going to rob bushels away from your fields. Talk to your input supplier, figure out the right fungicide for your acre. If you haven't made those plans, I'd suggest getting out there right away and talking to your input supplier. Fungicides are in high demand, and they're in short supply this season due to some global production issues. If you're going to apply a fungicide, look at the insect pressure that's in your fields. An insecticide is almost a no-brainer for a corn, soybean application late in season. You have the traits that are there, but if you can overlay that with chemistry, it gives you more of a bulletproof program to make sure you don't have any type of insect pressure that's robbing bushels away from you and pulling down your overall yield potential on your fields.
Well, and Sam, you mentioned some of those supply shortages. Talk about that a little bit and where we stand in regards to some of those supply shortages for crop protection products throughout the industry.
This year, our industry is experiencing things that we're not used to feeling and seeing here in the U.S. Major products have had significant shifts in demand and supply around the globe. And it's really created an unnatural, kind of an uncomfortable situation here in the U.S. But it's not something that just started in the last 12 months or the last 18 months. Really, these issues started back in 2017 and 2018. The majority of the herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides used in the U.S., they probably start overseas in either China or India. That's where the active ingredients are made. And in 2017, the Chinese government put a lot of pressure on their manufacturing facilities. A lot of facilities were closed. Some were at half capacity. And it started to reduce our overall global supplies on a lot of the key active ingredients that we use here in the U.S. Then in 2018, when the Trump administration applied tariffs on the Chinese goods, it created a lot of movement around the globe and kind of an uneasy supply situation. And it changed where a lot of the products were manufactured. A lot of production shifted out of China to different countries. A lot of it was brought back home to the U.S. here. And we strained and we challenged a lot of production capabilities around the globe. Back in 17 and 18, 19, we were starting to feel some of the impact from those changes. Then when the COVID-19 situation popped up 17, 18 months ago, it created a global capital issue when it comes to employees, workers at factories, making the active ingredients, making the products, and simply getting them distributed around the globe. Shipping across the Pacific Ocean from China to the U.S., huge delays and lag time. Then we struggled to get the stuff into the United States, and then we had very few truckers to haul product. Then we had a major catastrophe this past winter down in Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, where a lot of the major facilities that were producing products intended to hit your fields this summer literally came to a standstill. Facilities broke, pipes and meters were frozen and broken. And because of those issues, we ended up where we're at today. So that's kind of how we got into this situation. These are not easy fixes for our industry. We anticipate a lot of the supply problems continuing on into 2022, possibly into 2023. So how do we get out of the situation that we're in? You know, our industry is very good at eventually oversupplying product. Eventually we'll catch up from a manufacturing perspective and we'll have a good supply, but expect for the next 12, 18, maybe 24 months that the product you had always counted on could be an allocation. It could be short in supply. It may not arrive when you want it to arrive. So what's really crucial right now, just like I talked about during some of my scouting practices, talk to your input supplier about what's working, what's not working, how can you do better for the next crop year right now, and figure out what chemistries you need and what traits you plan to plant on those same acres next spring and summer. And make sure you're communicating to your input supplier any changes you foresee and when you need those products so that they're fully prepared to represent your needs on your farm and on your acres.
Well, and we appreciate the time with Sam Knott of Atticus, LLC. You can learn more by going online to their website, atticusllc.com. That's atticusllc.com. You can find your local retailer, your local rep, and talk with the folks there at Atticus to get a little help for your operation. Some great insight there, some scouting tips, and some great thoughts into some of the supply shortages there with Sam Knott of Atticus. I'm Jesse Allen reporting.